I'm Mary Pepino, and welcome to Fit for You, the show that teaches you how to live a healthier and more fit lifestyle. My biggest challenge, I think everyone's biggest challenge, is how do we motivate people and how do each of us get motivated to not only begin a healthier lifestyle, but maintain it. As I was thinking about someone that could deliver the message almost as well or even better than me, a very dear friend came to mind. And you had the pleasure of seeing him on a prior show. But I can honestly tell you, no one has the dedication and inspires, I think, as much as my guest today, Coach B, Bob Mansfield. And it gives me great pleasure to have him join me here in a few minutes. It gives me great pleasure to introduce my dear friend, and it's truly one of the, if not the most inspirational people I know, inspirational person I know, Bob Mansfield. My dear friend, thank you for joining me today.
Well, thank you for having me, Mary. Those are very kind words. I'm not sure they're totally deserving, but thank you once again. Very deserving.
And, you know, for our viewers that may not know, we spend a little bit of time. These shows just don't come together, you know, at the last minute. And when we were preparing last week for today, I had the pleasure of your wife, Linda, joining us as we were talking. And thank God, by the way, who's one of my dearest friends, because Linda and I had to have an after-meeting conversation because I learned so much more from her. I thought I knew you really well, and I got so much more from Linda. And where I'm going with all this is you are truly such a humble, understated individual with such accomplishments, and you give so much. You deserve to have a show to be about you, because I think the audience is going to walk away with a real energy after hearing your story.
Well, you know, none of this could have ever happened without Linda. So let's put the ownership where it belongs. You know, she's given me great direction and been there by my side through some difficult times. But you know, it's what do you want? You know, once again, what do you expect? You know, I've been dealt some tough blows, but it's what you do with them.
And you know, I was thinking of a title for the show, and I want to use your saying, "Own it." You're the master of owning it.
Well, when you're faced with adversity, you have a couple choices. You know, you can look it in the eye, try to beat it, or quit. It's very simple. How much do you want to live? You want to have a productive life? You just want to exist? You make the choices. You know, there's a lot of medical miracles out there. I'm not the only one, but there's a lot of situations where people have been dealt tough situations and don't have the support that I did from my wife, and also from a lot of friends who've encouraged me to keep moving forward. A lot of great doctors that I can't even repay some of the things that they've done and told me to do. But you got to listen, and you got to grasp a hold of what the problem is, take ownership of it, and go forward and wish for the best.
And we're going to take this human interest story in a little different direction, because as you always do, you automatically start talking about all the people that you want to thank, but you never talk about all the people that thank you and all that you do and have done for so many. And I want to start, let's go way back, because we're going to talk about you as an educator, as a mentor, as an advisor, as a coach, as a professional referee, and as a 20-year plus kidney transplant survivor that's doing amazingly well. Let's talk about, we're going to take it all the way back to when you were about 10 years old. You lost your dad.
Lost my dad. Never really had the opportunity to have a father. My uncle Ed Hume, who was president of Servamation at the time, acted like my father. That's my mother's brother, and he gave me a lot of inspiration and a lot of direction and a lot of discipline.
Yes, because now we're going to jump to 10, 11, 12. So you have this horrible tragedy of losing your dad, and then you didn't become the most obedient, quiet child
No.
Right?
God rest my mother's soul, because I have a brother, Richard, who was much more compliant than me. I just was not a real compliant person. I bucked authority. I went to school. I did what I had to do in school like everybody else. Went on to high school at Ursula.
Oh, wait, I love your altar boy story.
Had the altar boys. I was an altar boy. That's the thing with my buddies, can't believe that.
And maybe drank a little of the wine.
Well, we had to make sure it was okay for the priest. So we would drink the wine before the priest got it. I mean, please don't tell the people at the Catholic Church that.
Oh, no, no one will. They'll never hear after today. And what about raided a few gardens?
Raided a few gardens. That's what we did. Me and my buddies. I had a lot of young kids my age, and we used to raid gardens and torture the older people on the street. And I apologize to them if they're still around, because that's what some kids do. Nowadays, kids go out with guns and rob things. We didn't do that stuff. We were just mischievous, is a good word for it.
But it was a good foundation that led you into education. Maybe that's why you're such a great educator, motivator later on in life, which we'll get to.
There was a lot of guys that I grew up with. We were all pretty close, and then we graduated, some from Cheney High School, some from Ursula, and that most of them decided to go in education. So I just followed suit and went into education with them. And you know, at first, college was a social thing. It was, which college is for most kids, but it didn't set in where that I was actually there to learn until maybe the sophomore year. And then we decided to major in a specific form of education, and I became a teacher. And then from the teaching standpoint, I was a principal in the Youngstown City Schools.
And before we get to that, I want to go back to when you're about 12 years old, and your uncle decides that you should have a membership to the Y.
Right.
And why does he do that?
Well, because back then, you know, I had my mother. I didn't have a father. My mother had just a job, and she did the best she could to take care of me and my brother. And my uncle, being a president of a company, there were memberships available for kids that keep them off the streets. And because of my background, my uncle Ed thought it would be appropriate for me to get off the streets and go to the Y, where there was some structure and discipline. Discipline's the key word.
And when you became a member of the Y, you found a strong passion for a sport.
Yeah, I played a lot of racquetball, you know, over the years. As I grew up and got older, it was a sport that was a tough sport. You had to be in shape for it. You had to train for it if you wanted to compete. And there was different levels of it, and I was able to move myself up to one of the higher levels and play a lot of the guys at the YMCA downtown. And back in those days, there were really a lot of good players around here.
And then you go to Ursuline High School.
Ursuline High School. Maintain
your membership at the Y, racquetball galore.
Mm-hmm.
And you also ran every day.
Ran every day, 5 miles a day. Got in that habit, which was we used to run around Lake Glacier, down in the park. And that kept you in shape for racquetball. And then you trained, you tried to lift weights, and you got into a semi-lifting program. And it just kept you motivated and kept you in shape for the game. Because the game is very physical. And you can't survive when I'm playing. Everybody I played was bigger than me. So I'd have to be on my best day even to compete.
And I think what's very inspiring about that, and what's a great message too, for young people that are struggling or trying to find themselves, look to something that you can do physically, because sometimes you can find that passion, and it can turn your life into a different direction.
Well, I think, you know, you've got to have a balance, and the balance is both mental and physical. If you just are doing things that are mental, like sitting behind a desk, you lose focus of what else you need to stay healthy. It's a lifestyle. So, you know, a lot of guys back then were all going to college and getting close to graduating, but they were all working out. And, you know, because it was just what we did.
And you weren't playing on the high school basketball team or football team?
Nope. I was not part of that. I mean, I played a little bit in junior high in St. Brendan's, but when you got into high school, I was 140 pounds. Mm-hmm. And that was, we had pretty good teams back then, so maybe I wasn't good enough.
Big enough.
Big enough or good enough, maybe.
You also suffered from a lot of allergies.
Right.
You went to bed at night with an inhaler oftentimes, trying to strengthen your lungs.
Spent a lot of time in Cleveland Children's Hospital.
Yeah, how old were you when that started?
About 10, 12, to that age.
Okay, so now, so the why and all of this activity also helped you with that, right?
Well, yeah, the doctors, I was really, had severe allergies, and I was on a lot of medication and stuff, and my whole life's been through one thing after another like that. But the doctors always encouraged me to do something physical, get an exercise, try to build up your lung capacity so you could breathe better. Because I couldn't breathe, I had asthma really bad, and as time, and I didn't smoke or anything like that, but you're able to get stronger if you exercise, do it right.
And that's how you started running, right?
That's how I started running, to get my lung capacity better so I could breathe normally. Mm-hmm. That's it worked.
And then from Ursuline High School, you go on to Youngstown State University, right. And there you started to master competitive racquetball.
Well, I started to play more. I started to play more with the guys that were better than me, because you can't get good at anything if you stay with the status quo. You have to be involved with people that are better than you. That's in any sport. I think that's in anything in life. I
love that.
You have to have the desire and the drive to compete. And in order to compete, you have to get beat. And you have to learn from your defeats, and you have to figure out what you did wrong, and you got to find ways to get better. I think you do that when I was a principal. I think you do that in the business world. I think you do that in the coaching profession. I think you do it if you want to be better. You have to compete at any level you're at. Doesn't matter what you're doing. You could be any job. You must compete in that job to be the best you can.
That's so important.
It's just a philosophy that, my Uncle Ed taught me a lot of that stuff, because he was running a big company, and he was a track star at Ohio State and ran with Jesse Owens. So he was a small guy, but...
Oh, I didn't know he ran with Jesse Owens.
Yeah, Jesse Owens at Ohio State track team. Way back.
Cool.
And, he won a bunch of Big Ten championships. He was a long-distance runner. But he was a mentor to me because I didn't have a father. So,
mm-hmm. And I think everybody needs a mentor or has mentors and people you look up to and admire. I think they're so inspiring.
Well, as long as they have the right message.
Right.
Usually now, this day and age, you see these young people, they have mentors, but they're not always the best mentors. You got to have somebody that's out there with your best interests and positive and leading you in the right direction. Because this crazy world, man, there's a lot of stuff going on. I learned it in my days at Ohio State. But
so true.
It's just, you got to have the right person being able to put you in line when you're wrong and stop you.
Exactly. I want to talk about, too, so you needed to make some extra money in college, so what did you do?
Well, there was a guy, back those days, there was a guy named Mike Morrow. He taught a sports appreciation class, so we all thought it was an easy class, so we just took it. That's what you do. That's what you do when you're in college.
So easy hours.
But he taught refereeing basketball. So there was like 4 of us or so. So a couple of us said, you know what, I might like to do that. I'd like to try that. I never did anything like that before. So we signed up for his class, and we passed the test, and we became referees. Most of them didn't stay long, but I ended up having a 30-year career with it. And it gave us a little bit, and we'd referee those small games like, church leagues and Y leagues, and you got a few bucks here and there, and that was your spending money.
But then you went on to referee. Now, you even went into the World Basketball League as a ref, correct?
Right. Well, I went through the high school part of it, and for 30 years. I did college basketball for probably 14 or 15 years, and I did the pros. That was a professional league for, 5, 6 years. My whole career did about 3,000 games.
And by the way, and another great little point your wife told me, my dear friend Linda, that you didn't. You were inducted into the Ohio Athletic Association Hall of Fame for your refereeing efforts, correct?
Right. That was
That's pretty special.
Well, I didn't know, you have to be nominated. I don't know the process. But I remember it was right after we were leaving from Ohio State. And I received this call and said, you're going to be inducted into this Hall of Fame. in Columbus, Ohio on such and such a date. Well, I didn't really think much of it. I didn't know what it was, so I never knew anybody that was in it. So when we went to the event, it was a big deal. There was 500 people. It was at the baseball field down in Columbus. Coach Tressel came. I sat next to the high school commissioner, who I used to referee with, by the way. And there was like 10 people from all over the state. So it was a nice honor. I really don't know a whole lot of people that have gotten that award.
It's amazing. And you don't talk about it.
No.
And I'll tell you what else is going to, I bet you that the most amazing thing from us that know you, that are, after they see this show, are going to talk about that. And we're going to get to the fact that you won 3 gold medals in racquetball for the after transplant games, which we're going to get to later on in the interview. But that's pretty damn amazing too.
Well, once again, you got to compete. So
amazing.
You don't always have to win. You just got to compete.
So when you're in college, now you finish college and you decide to major in
education.
Uh-huh.
Right.
And you come out and you taught for what, a year or two?
I taught for like 3 or 4 years, but then I was asked to apply for administration.
Now, had you started your master's program yet?
Yes.
Okay. So while you're teaching, you also are going to school to get your master's.
Well, I had 2 masters. Mm-hmm. I had a master's in guidance. I wanted to be a guidance counselor, and then a couple guys that I got to know were principals. They said, "No, you don't need to do that, Bob. You need to be a principal." So I had to go back and get. I guess it's not another master's. It's a certificate. I get an administrative certificate.
And you have a master's in English too.
In English, yeah.
See, thank God for Linda.
Well, but that was what I was. But then I got the all of that went towards a doctorate degree. By the way.
Yeah, you're like an hour shy?
No, yeah, I didn't. Well, they told me I had to do this internship, and I said, and I had a job. I was teaching, so I said I can't take off 6 months to do that. So I had all the coursework and done everything up to the internship. So they said, well, we're not going to be able to call you Dr. So-and-so. I said, I don't. That's fine. Doesn't matter.
So we call you Coach B now.
You call me whatever you want to call me. But I ended up getting the administrative degree, mm-hmm. and then principalship, and then I became a principal. And I was a principal for, like 15 years. Head principal.
And very well respected.
You'll have to ask those people that.
I have.
Okay.
And they said,
I don't know.
And as we talk further, because then when you go on to work with, at that time, Coach Tressel, now President Tressel, the Ohio State football players that you were involved with, and many of the YSU players are still very close with you today, look up to you, call you for advice. It says a lot.
That came about after the transplant, kidney transplant. Coach Tressel used to see me when I refereed games. And when we used to coach with Bobby Stoops, the older Bobby Stoops at Youngstown South back then, and Coach Tress would come up and recruit some of the players at that school.
For YSU?
For YSU. He was at YSU. So when I got sick, and then I recovered, 3 years later I had the transplant, he came to me and said, you got to do something. He said, we can't waste you. You got to do something. So I said, Coach, what am I supposed to do? I don't know what to do. He said, well, I'm going to bring you down as an academic guy in YSU. And that's how that started. And that's how my relationship with him started. Because I didn't want any money. He didn't have a lot of money. I didn't need anything. I just needed to be healthy. And after transplant surgery, that's a pretty tough rehab.
And there you go
again. It's a tough rehab.
I don't want anything.
No,
I'll give you my time. I'll give of myself. Yeah. I'll give to these kids.
Right. Well, I had the experience, because of my years at South High School, with the older kids. So we ran the study table, and we monitored and mentored their being in class every day, and the program worked well because it was accountability. It was Tressel was all about accountability, owning it, and we would submit reports every day, and he would. They'd be held accountable for not going to class, for missing study table, for et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And there would be consequences for your actions. That's what started that. And he liked that. And we end up having a lot of kids graduate, and he went on to win 4 national championships.
But the interesting thing too about how you did it was, these were kids that, usually didn't start out with maybe the best attitudes and didn't want to be there.
Oh, yeah.
You won them over.
Well,
then they were coming, then you won them over to wanting to be there, to want to get good grades, to want to be the best, not just at athletics, but at academia.
Well, most of these guys that go to college on football scholarships, they're there to play. In their mind, they're there to play football because their objective is to go to the NFL, whether it be at Youngstown State or at Ohio State. The odds are a lot greater you can make it to that goal at Ohio State. But our goal, and the people that I worked with, was for them to graduate. Because Coach Tressel used to say when he would recruit, he'd tell the mothers, I'm going to make, when your son is done, here's what I can promise you. I can't promise you anything about football, but I can promise you this: if he listens, he'll graduate. You'll be proud of him when he walks across that stage, and he'll be a man, and he'll go back to the community and serve the community of where he's ever from. And that's the message that we carried on through those 17 years that I was with him. And that 17 years, 7 at Youngstown State and 10 at Ohio State.
We're going to talk a little bit about that because I want to go back now to your principal,
right?
And maintaining a healthy lifestyle. Always worked out. Always, we're never like we're an overeater where you were indulging in things. I mean, you always maintained a pretty good, lifestyle.
For the most part.
And then you get this blow out of nowhere. Never smoked.
No.
And tell us what happened.
Went into renal failure. No reason. Just was a matter of got sick and went to the hospital, and the doctor says, you're in renal failure. I didn't know what that was. We're going to put you on dialysis immediately. And I said, I don't even know what you're talking about. And
now, how old are you at this time?
Probably about 40. About 40, 42, because I was on dialysis for 3 years. Then I got my transplant.
We were fortunate enough to get it to. Now, tell us about dialysis, because now you talk about inspiration again for our audience, because we think about, do I have to go work out? You explain to us what your dialysis days were like.
If you know anything about that, that's a tough treatment, and it's 3 to 4 hours. Most people don't recover very well from it because it's tough. But I never missed a day of work.
So you went to dialysis.
I went to work. I went to school. Then I went to dialysis.
And then after that, what did you do?
Well, that would be that day. Then the next day I'd work out.
Always the day after.
Every day.
And I know it wasn't easy.
No, but I didn't do the things I could do today. But I did what I could do. But it kept me balanced. It kept me strong, because dialysis tears your bone, your muscles, and your tissues, and the blood, and it's a cleansing of the blood to get the toxins out of your body. It's a wears on your heart. It's a tough problem.
And that was 3 years.
2.5 years, and then I got the call to get the transplant.
So now you get the transplant. And at that point in time, that's when you have to transition from, I think you retire from being principal education at the time.
Dr. Biscardi was my doctor. He was a wonderful human being. He told me that when I got the transplant, that because of the job I had in education with kids that carry diseases, and not always, some of them aren't the cleanliness or whatever, I need you to retire. And I said, well, he goes, I'll get you to retire, but you need to retire. I said, well, I really didn't want to retire. He said, you got to retire, because it's just not in your best interest to be around a lot of people right now, because of what you could pick up.
Your immune system.
Yeah, very, very compromised, and it still is to this day.
That doesn't stop you, though.
No, you just got to keep going. No.
So you retire, and you get the kidney transplant. And explain to us, too, how long before you got back into working out? Because you didn't let that hold you down.
Let's see. A couple days, I walk on a treadmill.
After you had the transplant? Yep. A couple days?
A couple days.
Not even a week?
Went to the Y. I mean, I had lost a lot of weight. I was really thin. And I went to the Y and walked on the treadmill. I mean, I couldn't do a lot, but I would go to the Y.
Well, how long were you in the hospital after the transplant?
I was probably one of the guys who got out quicker than anybody. Some of those things go from 10 days to 2 weeks, depending on how things work. I was out in 5 days.
And then, excuse me, you came home and then you started going to the Y.
I went home and my wife would drive me down to the Y. Drop me off. I couldn't drive. I was really weak.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I couldn't, I used to like to lift weights and stuff. I couldn't lift 40 pounds.
But you kept going.
Kept going. But then I kept at it. Then I was lifting a couple hundred, at the end of the.
How long did it take you?
It took me a couple years.
But you got back into it?
Got back into it to that point. But you gotta, how do you feel better when you do something? And, you're restricted on so many things that you have to decide, what are you going to do here? Am I going to sit home today, or am I going to get up and do something?
And own it. Where do I want to be? What did the doctors tell you about your fitness?
Oh, they told me when the guy that did the transplant from Cleveland Clinic, he said, we got to come in here, and I remember that night it was like 3 a.m. He said, you got to take your shirt off and stuff, and I got to take a look at you. And he goes, oh man, you're pretty good shape. I said, yeah, I keep out. He said, most of the people you got to cut through a lot of layers of fat and stuff. And I'm going, oh my God. He said, we're not going to have any problem with you.
And didn't it make the recovery?
No, he said, the only person to screw this up is me. So he told me, I was
Thank God he didn't do that. He did a great job.
I was encouraging before they put you to sleep. He goes, I'm not going to screw it up. So it was pretty good.
That's awesome.
Yeah, sure.
So about that time, Coach Tressel, who's the football coach at YSU,
right,
comes and gets you, and he gets you involved in YSU, as we mentioned. Now I want to talk about, because after your transplant, you end up winning 3 gold medals in racquetball, the transplant games. Tell us about what transplant games are. Well,
transplant games are a every other year thing where they have it at different universities, usually all over the United States. The ones I participated in, one was at Ohio State, and the other 2 were at Disney World in Orlando, Florida. And then they have them at like Wisconsin, University of Wisconsin, but it's every other year, and they have about 30 events, and they have people and they're geared on your age, and you sign up for them if you want, if you're healthy enough to participate in. They're track events. I mean, pretty good competition, and
on all kind of transplants. Could it be a heart?
Anything.
It could be a lung.
Anything.
It could be a liver. It could be a kidney.
Anything. And the one in Columbus there was 3,000 participants and 15,000 people for opening ceremonies. Pretty neat. And
that's awesome.
And I played the defending champ, guy from Arizona, and I was fortunate enough to beat him. Then I had to defend my title 2 years later in Orlando. And because if you've ever been to Disney World in Orlando, that's a pretty spectacular place. And I had to come back 2 years later and then defend. If you don't have to go, but I wanted to go, so I did it for 6 years.
How long before you got back into racquetball after you had your transplant? Because I know you started working out, you started walking on the treadmill. How long from...
About a couple years later.
You got back into racquetball.
Right. And I haven't played... I used to like to play down the Y because there was a lot of guys that played. And I really can't play now because I had to get a hip replacement. So that took care of that. But that's okay. You just take those memories and you take that adversity and you pick it up and you find something else to do.
And there's another thing, part of the story that I want to get to, and since you brought it up, we can talk about it now. So through this journey of life, and because of, I believe it's the medications that you take that you have to take so you don't have rejection to the kidney, correct?
I take a lot of medicines.
But right? Anti-rejection?
They're anti-rejection medicines, there's blood pressure medicine, there's cholesterol, there's so many things because your immune system is compromised, which creates a lot of side effects. So I have a lot of side effects from all this stuff.
Which no one would ever know that knows you.
Well, no, because I don't talk about them, but there's a lot of side effects.
But your lifestyle, you're amazing. I mean, I don't know if I could keep up with your workouts, and I'm in pretty good shape.
Well, I worked out before I came here today. I did 3 miles on the treadmill, and then I did 40 some minutes of lifting, and then I stretched and went back and did the 4th mile.
And
I do 3 miles, and then I get off and I do like 45 minutes of lifting, and then I do the 4th mile. That's how I finish off. I do that, or I go on the Stairmaster.
And you're
Sometimes I switch
6 to 7 days a week.
7.
Unbelievable.
Once in a while I take a day off, but most of the time, no, 7. If all the parts are moving, I take 7. Sometimes they're not move. Sometimes they don't move as good as the other days. But because I'll be 70 years old, and
I wasn't going to say. I'm glad you did too, because that's another amazing.
I'm gonna be 70 years old in October.
And you're a poster child for it. Oh yes.
You just listen. There's a lot of people that fight through things. You don't always hear about them, but I think there's more that don't rise to the occasion that do.
Wait though, when you think about it, when you talk about fight through things, it starts at 10 years old when you lose your father, up to today when you're working through, and like I said, God bless you, you're in awesome shape. But I mean, even today, like you said, with the medicines you have to take, it's like, hey, it's just another hurdle we gotta work through. We gotta own it, we gotta move it.
And you gotta get up in the morning and you gotta, I do this stuff at first thing in the morning because I don't work anymore now that I'm retired.
You don't necessarily have it. You do a lot of work. You do so many things for so many people.
We do a lot of charity stuff, but we get up in the morning and the first thing we do is go to the gym. Because I think if you wait, you lose interest or you get tired or something happens, you get sidetracked a lot. So my wife gets up at 4:30 in the morning and works out.
God bless her, I know.
You know, I'm not doing that, but I'm at the gym every day by 8 o'clock.
I'm a 5:30 girl, and most people are like, "Oh, I meet Linda, right?" And no wonder we've become so close.
Well,
but I'm like, "You beat me by an hour."
You only know what you know.
I know.
So you only can do what you think is right, and that saying "you only know what you know" is pretty important in some areas.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's a great thing you both share, because I think you two motivate each other too. I mean, you're so supportive of each other, and yet you're both very motivating of each other. And by the way, she's a principal. She's in education.
Well, we have similar interests because that's how I met her. You know, she was a teacher.
You were a principal and she was a teacher.
Yeah, that's probably not. Superintendent might not want to hear that, but that's exactly.
That's very legit. That's fine.
Well, that's what happened. But we've been married 28 years, and you won't find a better human being to support you. She's got a great heart and kind, and she's been through a lot of these struggles with me. She's never backed down, and she could have said, "Hey, I can't put up with this every day," but it's the journey.
And you know,
it's not the end result. It's the end result, I guess, in some ways. But what makes you stronger is the journey.
Yes,
it's the journey to get there. It's from A to Z. You know, I remember when I was with Tressel at YSU, and we won the national championships. He said, I used to say to him all the time, "Well, you got to really be excited about this." Mm-hmm. He said, he's the one. It's the journey. Mm-hmm. He goes, "It's game 1 is just as important as game 15. Mm-hmm. You just got to get better every day." So,
I've been with you when your phone rings and it's so and so and so and so, and you can talk about some of the names, but they're former players that either from YSU or from Ohio State that you were responsible for keeping in line.
Hoping that they would graduate. Yes.
And the ones I know have master's degrees.
Some of them, sure.
Yes, are all pretty accomplished in their own right. Calling you for inspiration or advice, or I find that so cool. Like these kids,
well, they're not kids anymore.
Yeah.
But it's funny you say that because I just got a call yesterday from Jeff Ryan. I don't know if you know who that is, but he was the quarterback at Youngstown on the national championship, a couple of national championship teams. And he's in Boston, and he's moving back home, and he's going to come home next week. He wants to go out with me for dinner or whatever. But the guys, this past weekend, I had the opportunity to be with Bobby Carpenter from Ohio State, Troy Smith, the Heisman Trophy winner, Kurt Barton. And
I had the pleasure of meeting these people because of you, because they were coming here to just see you. They wanted to just have lunch or dinner with you. And Linda and I happened to be able to come be at the same venue and meet them through you. It's amazing.
Well, we brought them in last year for that autism banquet.
Sports trivia.
Yeah. And the guys that I probably spend the most time with now after all these years is A.J. Hawk. Uh-huh. He played for the Packers and the Bengals, and a lot of people would recognize that name. And Troy Smith. I'm very close with Troy. because Troy was going through some tough times at Ohio State, and we convinced him to hang in there, and I think it worked out pretty good for him. He won the Heisman. He graduated. All these guys graduated from college, by the way. Anthony Schlegel, the linebacker from Texas, Beanie Wells, they all graduated.
With good grades.
Yeah. Well, yes. Well, some of them went on to the Fisher School of Business, which is a big-time business school at Ohio State.
Another thing you're very giving of, if people are on dialysis or are considering a transplant, or if they are having hip issues, or whatever their health issues are, you're very giving of your time, because people are like, I'd like to talk to Mr. Mansfield. Is there someone, when people want someone to talk to or someone that it can reach out to? It's amazing to me how many people, and how, even to this moment, how you never say no. You make the time for everybody and anybody, and they walk away. I mean, you can see them, start out. The few times I've been able to be present a couple of times for conversations where they come in and they're so down, and they walk away with a smile on their face and a new exuberance, and they're like, I'm going to beat this, or I can do this, or it's going to be okay.
Well, after I had the transplant, Dr. Biscardi came to me and said, we'd like you to be on the kidney board. I said, yeah, Eastern Regional Kidney Association, I think it is. And I said, sure, absolutely, let's do it. So then, a lot of people that get transplants have told me that they don't want to go back to the centers where the dialysis is, because they have a hard time facing that process. That never bothered me. I went in there, and funny you say that, because last week, or it was a week or 2 weeks ago, Linda and myself met with a couple whose husband is on dialysis and is trying to get a transplant. So I think that message we try to give them was hope.
And that's
hope.
critical.
And you got to have hope, because this particular gentleman, he was struggling, man. He's struggling. But the questions I asked him were, number one, how compliant are you? Do you watch your diet? You can't drink the fluids. Do you do what you say? Get rid of the salt. Do you do all these things that you're supposed to do? And, I said, you don't have to answer me. You need to answer yourself on these things. But I wanted him to see somebody who's traveled the journey. You can't speak to these problems effectively to get someone to listen to you unless you've traveled it. That's in anything.
I agree.
You want to give people advice. Well, you better have had some adversity in your life before you talk to me about what's good and what's bad. Because some people that are spoiled and have been entitled, they're going to tell you about life. You can't tell me about life. You can't tell Joe Blow about life. So you need to travel the journey and then share your experiences, because you own it. You own that. I own these years. Nobody got me through these years. And people helped me, but I own them. I'm the one that had to live in this body, go through these things. That's what I tried to tell that guy a couple weeks ago. Whether he got the message or not, I don't know. We'll see.
I bet you
We'll
it
see.
made a change.
Hope he does.
We've talked a lot about exercise. I want to talk about diet for a minute, because you brought up something. When you were going through your dialysis for 3 years, because you talk about discipline too, how much liquid did you drink a day?
Oh, you can't only drink like 12 ounces, 12 or 14 ounces of liquid.
That's not even 2 8-ounce glasses of water.
No.
And that's
all day.
Soup.
Well, what I did...
Right?
Oh, you can't eat soup.
Any type of liquid. Soup, water, whatever.
Can't have salads.
Because there's water in the lettuce.
It's all water. Can't eat pasta because of the potassium level. You can't eat hot dogs. You can't eat any of that stuff. So that's why you lose weight, and because you're eating healthy.
But you were very compliant.
Yeah, you got to be compliant.
You're beyond belt, like you say. You can't even eat certain vegetables
you get sick
and things.
if you don't do what your body chemistry is off balance, because your kidneys aren't working. So you have nothing to compensate for the toxins that you put in. The negatives, they call them, you put them into your body. So the negatives overtake the positives. That's how you get sick. But what I would do, I had to find a way, because I worked out and I'm thirsty. So, and you're always thirsty, and it's very hard not to drink something when because everybody, you're thirsty, go get a glass of water, go get a soda, whatever you want.
I trained myself to drink so I get so much water in a day.
I can do it now, but I eat popsicles. All day. I have a popsicle.
That's a smart idea.
I wouldn't eat a popsicle today if you gave me $1 million.
$1 million, one?
I wouldn't even look at a popsicle today. I probably ate 40,000 of them. I don't even want to look at them. But they help because you're dry and you need something. You need something cold. You need something in your mouth. So that's what helped me. I tell people that all the time. Eat a popsicle. I told that guy the other day, he said, I'm so thirsty. And he's sitting there drinking coffee. And I said, what are you drinking? How can you do that? I can't do that. Well, I don't care. I said, well, you better start caring. Eat a popsicle. You'll feel better. But everybody's different.
Tell me why you think, and I think you have a God-given gift, why you're so inspirational. Why do you make such a difference in between having a person commit to doing something and giving them the inspiration to follow through?
Well, I'm not a shy guy. First of all,
hardly.
I'm not shy, so I mean, I don't mind addressing people. I don't mind being in front of groups. You know, my 10 years at Ohio State, I was in front of a lot of groups because when you're involved with the football program, you go out and speak to different kidney foundations, a lot of different people. But I think you have to be confident, and you have to believe in what your message is, and you can't fake it. You know, you can get up there and say things, but people are going to know whether you're honest or, you know, I mean, you really got to care about what you're saying, and you got to care about the people you're talking to, because if you're there to try to help them, then you got to really set an example.
I'm a goal person.
You got to live by example.
Critical.
Critical.
Because if you're going to be out there talking the talk, you got to walk the walk. I am a huge believer.
Well,
but people aren't going to listen. When I was young, and I would go to these cosmetic counters, this is a stupid little girl, a female story. So all these cosmetic counters, you know, were like, oh, this is the best, this is the best. The first thing I'd want to do is I'd want to look at the lady behind the counter and, you know, how did she look? Because I know she got product to use. If she didn't look that good, I'm like, no, I'm not going to use that product.
Well, people turn you off. You know, they might not be disrespectful to you, but they turn you off. Look at how much they care about politicians in this world. Tell you one thing, do another. And especially in the healthcare business, and a lot of it is the doctors too. When you deal with some of these doctors, you know, I was blessed to have good doctors, doctors that cared about me, doctors that followed through with me, doctors that I still deal with a bunch of doctors. You know, I mean, unfortunately, when you take this amount of medicine for this many years, almost 21 years, the immunosuppressant drugs are toxic. And they are toxic to your system. So other things, like right now, my major issue now is I get a lot of skin cancer issues. And
not even from going in the sun.
No, well, it's some of it, you know, he's explained to me that some of it's probably from years ago. But because your immune system is compromised, there's nothing you can do. And, you know, I go in every 3 months and they have to perform some surgeries, and I ask them how long before I can go back to the gym.
Well, and I was going to say, and I've seen you a couple of times on the same day you had a procedure.
Oh, I go to the gym.
Yeah, how many stitches? And first of all,
stitches.
No anesthetic sometimes, right?
Well,
a little numbing, but I'm saying like you're awake.
Yeah.
But you're not in twilight or anything. I mean, you're in the office.
Right.
And then, how many stitches sometimes?
Sometimes depends on the problem, but
up to
40.
That's unbelievable.
10 to 40, 8.
And you walk up, but
40,
then you
50 maybe, depends how bad it is, you know.
But you don't go home and go to bed.
No, I don't take any pain medicine.
Which
he always asks me if I want it. I go, no, I don't.
And he's an awesome physician, but I don't think
he's my guy, man. He's doing a good job with me. I love him. But I don't need to mention anybody's name, but it's he knows who he is. And the thing is, you know, he's concerned about me, and he said we can have great success if we stay obedient to the problem. Once again, if I would say, okay, here comes another one of those things, I'm not going. You know, and they don't hurt. Some of them don't hurt, but
and some of them do.
Some of them do. I mean, they hurt when you take them off. But if you ignore it,
right,
and say I go for a year, now I could have a major problem. and he said to me, Bob, you got to be compliant.
You own it.
You got to own it. And I say, okay, Doc, I'll be in every 3 months. And, even if it requires sooner than that, then I'll come in every 2 months. But I probably have about close to 300 stitches in the last 5 years, probably.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. I don't know the exact number, but they're pretty close. I don't even pay attention anymore.
I know.
Just do it and let's go.
And you get up every morning, and what do you put all over?
Sunscreen all over? And I got to put all kinds of stuff.
Even when it's cold outside, because the sun.
I can't be in the sun.
Is still shining.
So I went to Florida, and
your wife bought you a beautiful hat.
A beautiful hat. I look like a little mummy walking around. But you gotta do what you gotta do, and it's okay. But see, if you played the oh me card, oh God, look at me, then you don't have a chance to be happy. You got to be happy. I want to be happy. I want to know. I don't know how many years I have left, but I know this much: I've had a good life. I've had a great life. I've had great people, great friends,
and
great experiences.
Don't you enjoy life?
I enjoy every day.
Even with all the trials and tribulations, it's a great life because you've made it a great life.
I've talked to many people that worry about things that are non-essential.
Not that important.
Not that important. And I say to them all the time, let that stuff go. Try to, they have arguments or disparate. Try to be forgiving, and forgiveness is a great quality. And, we all have our own little quirks and this and that, but,
let it go.
I've had a great, for almost 70 years. I've had a lot of ups and downs, but I've met so many good people. Mm-hmm. And you have to go search those people out sometimes. They just don't come to you. You got to find them.
Again, owning it.
Owning it. And sometimes you're attracted to them, and they're attracted to you because of maybe it's a personality, maybe it's somebody who's can offer some solution to maybe one of their problems, possibly. I don't know. But it's a day-to-day. I don't look past today. See, everybody says, "What do you do tomorrow?" I got to get through today. Tomorrow,
I love it.
Tomorrow's tomorrow. I can't worry about tomorrow. I worry about today. Don't you keep a calendar? I go, I keep a calendar, but guess what? I don't look at it.
And so many people don't enjoy today. And I'm a kind of person who found myself falling into that trap. I was so worried about tomorrow and 6 months from now, but I was missing today.
Nothing's promised.
Right.
Nothing's promised.
You have to plan, and you have to have goals, but you have to enjoy and people who are like, well, I'll do that tomorrow. I'll do that.
Do it today.
Tomorrow never comes.
Well, one of the things my wife's got me involved with, I think is pretty neat, and I've started to embrace it. You go through all this stuff and you look at your faith and you say to you, are you a spiritual guy or are you a religious guy? I think there's a difference between spirituality and religion. But, do you blame God, or do you think that why should you have all these difficulties and no, but some other people don't? Every Tuesday Linda got me on this about 20 years ago. Every Tuesday around 12 or 1 o'clock, I go to Sacred Heart, adoration, by myself. Nobody with me. Go in the church. I spend half hour to an hour by myself. I have some scripture to read or something, just something to bring me back to reality and count my blessings. I don't go in there with a negative attitude. I never do. I go in there and gives you a chance to, with nobody around, make no excuses, and just try to ask God for all the blessings He's given you. And and if people don't believe in that, that's their choice. Mm-hmm. But I always find it interesting that when somebody gets sick, what's the first thing they do? They go to church. Mm-hmm. But when they're not sick, they don't go. Some of them. And I say, well, why do you ask for forgiveness when you have the opportunities to do it now? Mm-hmm. They don't do it. So.
And I think that spiritual side for me personally too. I've been so fortunate because I haven't had to go through nearly half of what you have. But when it's, I'm blessed every day and I thank God every day. But you're right, when something goes, He's helped me through so many difficult times and I'm so appreciative.
Well, you got to believe in a higher power.
Right.
You don't get,
I
get some of these miracles like me by just man-made alone. Mm-hmm. I believe in that. There's a reason why God kept me around. I can't define that, but I got to try to just keep giving back. I got to try to be positive and lead by example, and hopefully some of the things I do, other people can benefit from them. I'm not a negative guy. I don't want to be negative I try to be very positive. I don't want to get into that negative side. No, There's no advantage in it.
No.
And there's no winners.
No.
Like my wife who's a principal at the Valley Christian School. She goes to work every day. She doesn't have to work, and she goes to work every day, 12 hours a day, every day, and
sometimes it goes above and beyond on nights and weekends.
Well, sometimes these days aren't that nice. They're not that good. Kids are tough to deal with all day long, and she's getting a little older, and she says she comes home positive, always positive.
Always.
And I said, smile on her face, and even in the worst days in the world. So you learn from the people you're around too. Mm-hmm. So I get strength from her in regards to everyday stuff.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so, there's a lot of people that I look at and I admire. I don't have to tell them. I know. You don't have to praise people. You just know.
Before we close, I want you to give just a minute or two. Tell our viewers it's your opportunity to inspire them to own it and to be happy. How can they embrace? Because everybody wants to look and feel good.
Sure.
But it's such a difficult first step, and then it's a tough journey. How can we help them to take that step, or people that are already out there to do it even a little bit better?
Well, you got to be true to yourself first. Can't be a phony. You got to be true. You got to own everything you do, good or bad. If you make a mistake, own it.
And move on from. Don't let it drag you down. Learn from it and turn it into a positive.
Well, one of the things I learned at Ohio State, and I used to sit in all those meetings and stuff, and a lot of it's generated from the head coach and all that stuff, was you got to give back. Mm-hmm. You got to give. You can't just be a taker all the time. It's easy to take, but you feel so much better about yourself when you give. Now, I'm not saying you have to give money, but time is more important than money in many situations. So you got to find a cause, find a charity, find something, find a person, find somebody that you can relate to, that you can help, that you can make a difference in their life on the right side, not the wrong side. Because God knows there's so many negative things out there to pull you the other way. You're so easily misled. It's incredible. But, if you own it, you can share it.
I love it. I thank you so very much. You're amazing.
Well, thank you for having me. It's an honor. It's always a pleasure to be around you. You do so much for so many.
Oh, please. A little tiny pimple compared to you. But
no, I don't buy that. Nope.
Coach B, Bob Mansfield.
See you later.
Oh,
thanks.
Thank you so much to our viewers. I hope you enjoyed the show, and I hope you've become inspired to take the first step in whatever it is you're really wanting to do. I'm Mary Pepino. Thanks for watching. This is Fit for You.